Good evening. So, in environment, one major area that you can expect questions is from year-end review. Basically, not just 2025, even 2024 year-end review, we can have a look at it. But the way we learn environment as a subject is it should not be separated from our basics. So, whenever you are looking at any fact, the instinct should always be to map it to our static subheadings. Okay. And instead of looking at them as random facts, you have to look them as an extension of the static concept and the application of the static concept in the present times. All right. So the same year-end review, whatever you will be reading here, I am trying to reposition the same facts through the lens of the static syllabus. Apart from this, we will be looking at another important area, bioheritage sites and community reserves, where you can probably expect question this year. So these will be the three themes that we'll discuss today. Take a look at this. A year dedicated to forest conservation, wildlife protection, and global leadership in addressing climate change. When we were dealing with the topic of climate governance, what were we talking about? Environmental governance as a subject. What is the overarching theme that we have to focus on? First is adaptation. Like you have to adapt to the new idea that climate is changing and we have to survive. And as a part of this, we were discussing three different conventions from 1992. And as far as the climate part is concerned, UNFCCC is the main overarching idea. The convention deals with the theme of climate change comprehensively. Then you've had UNCBD, UNCCD, which deals with, UNCCD deals with land degradation, UNCBD deals with biodiversity. So, in reality, you cannot expect the nature to deal in silos. Climate change is definitely going to have an impact on biodiversity. Biodiversity, the way it evolves, will have an impact on desertification, and it's like a system. It's a self-adjusting system. Small change here will impact elsewhere as well. You have to understand this part. So, when you are looking at the initiatives taken by the ministry here, only one method you should be using. What problem are we trying to solve? Okay. Let's read them one by one, because today in this class, what I intend to teach is reading between the lines. Environment is one area where you will get a lot of questions which do not come from your static textbook. So you are expected to read between the lines and decipher a pattern there. Read this. Some X number saplings planted under Ek Ped Maa Ke Naam campaign. What is the significance of this date? 5th June 2024. Environment Day. So, what is done here? What can you say is the objective of this campaign? Ek Ped Maa Ke Naam campaign. Afforestation. So, if you have to link this to a problem that our government is trying to solve, what is the theme there? What is the policy tool? We have something called Panchamrit strategy or INDCs. NDCs basically, nationally determined contributions. By doing this activity, are we contributing to any of that NDC? What is that? Carbon sinks. Can you tell me what is the target? Anyone? 2.5 what? Just don't give me numbers. Give me a complete sentence. Some X amount of carbon dioxide will be taken back from our environment using the baseline of 2005. How much? remember the targets. Always look at the National Action Plan for Climate Change, then the NDCs, then every initiative that you read in environment, you should be able to map it to this in one of the targets. That is how you will try to create some predictability in the questions. Always question why we are doing this so that you can map it to the respective targets we have already set for ourselves. So take this as a homework. Homework number 1. What are the 8 plans under National Action Plan for Climate Change? What are the latest updates on that? What is NDC? What is the biennial update on NDC? In India, who takes care of this NDC's reporting? What is the role of Niti Aayog? What is the role of Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change? These are the questions you need to have answers for. Then, India is ranked 9th globally in total forest area. Okay, and retained its position at 3rd worldwide in terms of annual forest gain. Cumulative gain of some X% in forest and tree cover since 2013. Again, I'll give you one more homework. The reason why I'm giving those homeworks is because I want you to learn the art of designing questions. If you have to excel in this exam, you should be able to learn how to create those questions. And wherever mere clarity on the definitions and facts are concerned, instead of me telling you them, you creating them for yourselves will give more clarity. So I switch the pedagogy depending on the subject. If I feel that you doing this research will give you more clarity, I will give it as a homework. If I feel that it will waste your time, I am usually giving away the information curated for you. Here, definitional clarity is very important. Whenever you are talking about the definition of forest cover or tree cover, whatever methodology we are using in capturing that, there is an important judgment of Supreme Court. Anybody? There is a judgment called Godavarman judgment. Okay. So what is this Godavarman judgment saying? What is Supreme Court saying in terms of what constitutes forest? What is forest? So take these questions down, because this will act like this research activity that you have to spend 1 hour or more than 1 hour, whatever it takes. If you do this, you are covering the topic entirely. In this very specific order, you do it. You begin by asking what is Indian government's definition on forest cover? What is considered as a forest? Then what are the various categories of forests? There are 2 ways to learn a subject. One is by directly consuming, 2 is by doing some research, 3 is by using logic. Sometimes when method is changed, the rate of consuming information will be much more faster. Depending on the subject, we will switch the methodology. Okay? Find out answers for these questions instead of me telling you directly. Even if I tell, you will forget the nuances. What are the various categories of forests? Third, what is the difference between forest cover and tree cover? Is there any difference? If yes, how will we consider trees in urban centers? Is it a part of forest? Answer this question. We claim that our forests are increasing. Where is this increase coming from? Is it coming from the core forest or is it coming from elsewhere? Okay, answer this question. Fourth one. Where are you getting your increased forest area from? Now, when you're talking about forest cover and everything, what is the report that will help you? Indian State of Forest Report. Now, which states have highest coverage, highest density, and as a percentage of area? Highest as well as lowest. Order based questions you can expect from this. This is when you do this assignment, one major topic will be over. Okay. Then I want you to tell me, is cutting down a tree crime or not in a forest area? Let's say I go into a core forest area and start cutting it down. Wildlife crimes. Now, is this a crime under Environment Protection Act or Wildlife Protection Act or Forest Conservation Act? Wildlife. Why not forest? Why not Forest Protection Conservation Act? Wildlife crimes. Let's say I'm smuggling star tortoise from one area to other. Then it is pretty clear. That is probably under wildlife protection. But when it comes to forest areas, which regulation? Environmental protection, forest conservation, wildlife protection, Biodiversity Protection Act, Biodiversity Act, 2002. What is CITES? What organization is involved in regulating wildlife trade? Is it Navy? Coast Guard? Then Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change? Or Wildlife Warden? What other options can you think of? Customs? What is the role of DGFT? Ever heard about this? Directorate General of Foreign Trade. Will they give permission to catch star tortoise? What is the nodal agency for this in India? No, what agency is involved in protecting wildlife? So many confusions, right? In the next class, we will clear all these confusions, but I want you to think in this direction before we start the next class. This is one area which is absolutely confusing for many aspirants. UPSC has not yet asked because there are overlapping jurisdictions sometimes. It gets too technical. But a very big concern right now is this wildlife crimes. Neither do we have a clear-cut reporting mechanism. When you see that, of course there are, but it is not mainstream. What activities are taken up for handling this wildlife crime? This will be another theme. One more theme that you can expect a question is man-animal conflict. This is a very straightforward topic and you will all write mains answers. But how will you ask in prelims? If I tell you that you will have to mug up elephant corridors and tiger reserves, or elephant corridors, tiger reserves, national parks, protected areas, everything. It's like I'm asking you to mug up every fine detail of India map because there are so many. And practically, it's not possible. Then, how do I identify which site is going to be more important? Simple. Take out the ones that are in news, observe wherever there is a flagship species, take that site. Why is this site having more man-animal conflict? How to resolve that? What measures should we take? When you prepare it like this, most of the questions will be solved. And wherever you have a elephant corridor in that region, or some tiger reserve or wildlife sanctuary, that becomes important. Clear? This is one way in which UPSC can ask questions from PIB. Indirectly, not directly. Then, one way to take any policy decision is by measuring something. What are the metrics that you are using to measure? What are the tools that you are using to measure? Metric is the number, tool is the way you measure that number. This can be a source of question. Clear? So, most of the times when questions are asked either on the metric or on the tool, you will be able to decipher the answer by reading the question itself. Read the question very carefully. Don't give up, even when the question is lengthy. The lengthier the question, the easier it is, because they will have to place clues within that question. So learn to practice reading the entire question line by line, especially in environment. So with this context, let's see what was discussed in this year's year-end survey. What is this GFRA? It's a tool. Like I told you, you have to measure something. This survey is measuring that. Then, Project Cheetah. When you're talking about cheetah, why are we trying to reintroduce cheetah? Like, why import it from there and why take this trouble at all? How many of you read about Project Cheetah? Everyone. How many of you must have picked up magazines out of fear by now? You must be reading every magazine. I'm asking a simple question. Why did we introduce cheetah? Prey population will be high. Then why not put a tiger there? Why not a leopard? There are so many big cats. You know what is a big cat? Big cat is a category. Like you will have your lions, tigers, everything that will be clubbed there. Why not put any other predator there? Why take this? Why import from elsewhere? Is it some fancy show off project? Then what? Tell me from a scientific principle. Till 1950s, cheetah existed in India naturally. It was the apex predator of that ecosystem. In the absence of that apex predator, there is an imbalance in that ecosystem. Cheetah's reintroduction was meant to act like a mechanism that will naturally restore that balance. You know Yellowstone National Park? Anyone heard of this? You know the wolf experiment. How many of you know this? The wolf experiment is very simple. Many years ago, there is a national park in US called the Yellowstone National Park. The government did a lot of technological interventions, this, that, afforestation, some kind of experiments they tried, nothing really worked out. Then an environmentalist suggested a simple measure. At that point, there were no wolves in that national park. Previously, wolves were the apex predators. Just by reintroducing two wolves into that ecosystem, in a span of time, everything came back into balance. In the absence of an apex predator, the herbivorous animals overconsumed the leaves and trees in that region and everything got dried up. The balance was gone. Reintroduction of wolf, or in this case, reintroduction of cheetah, will restore that balance. Why not any other animals? They don't thrive there. That's why. But when cheetah was reintroduced, they could not survive because they are from a different place, Namibia, African cheetahs. So you have to create conditions for survival of these wild animals, and that will restore that ecological balance. That's the reason why we are studying this. Any animal conservation project is about restoring that balance naturally. It is not for your forest safaris. It's not a tourist campaign. Please understand that. Where is this? Gandhi Sagar Wildlife Sanctuary. Another homework. Where is this place? What was the first place that you saw cheetah reintroduction? Okay. You know all those points, so I'm not really emphasizing. 5 national level species conservation projects were launched. We will see what those are. 103 cities recorded PM10 levels under NCAP. So when did this come into existence? National Clean Air Program. And what do you mean by attainment cities? The concept of attainment. Are you aware of this? Cities which abide by certain standards, they're given this tag. Okay. Nagar One Yojana. So there are multiple such projects like this which are discussed. So all these initiatives should be logically clubbed under the static syllabus that you are already aware of. And that's what I tried to do. When you are reading these topics, let's say for example, like Project Cheetah, these are some of the facts that you have to remember as a takeaway. But UPSC is not going to ask questions like that. They will ask about the principles underlying these facts. For example, when you're talking about the forest assessment part, the principles which explain that, afforestation and forest monitoring, that part will be asked as a question. Secondly, when you're trying to talk about species reintroduction, why are we doing it? That will be embedded within the questions. When you're talking about air pollution governance, just like how I asked wildlife crimes, how are they dealt with? Multiple options that can confuse you. You can get initiatives that can confuse you. UPSC examiner, especially in environment, will give you very basic questions, but will introduce distractors that can confuse you. This pattern you should understand, and how to avoid those distractors by focusing on problem solution. For example, Wildlife Protection Act. What is the main intent? Environmental conservation, biodiversity. Every act has a central premise. When you are reading your basic textbooks, we tend to ignore this comparative study. We just focus on what are the provisions, how to remember. But if I ask you logically which act will you use, you're confused because you never directed your mind to think in that direction. And this class is meant to push you in that, because there's no point teaching those again and again. You already know most of those. And that's the reason why I'm asking questions, so that you go back and do your homework. If you're not doing, then you're missing out an opportunity. I'm pretty sure whatever exercise you do today will be helpful in this year's exam. A question will come in the discussion, from the discussion that we are having today. But I'm not going to give the answers right away because it won't retain in your mind. Do it in the very same logical sequence. Okay, please go back. Then, of course, when you are talking about the number of sites that are added up, I don't think UPSC will ask questions on which are the new sites, details about those sites. Now you have more than 100. It makes no sense to remember all those 100 sites. But you will have to observe patterns. Where are they located? Can you tell me why there is a sudden surge in the number of wetland conservation sites? Is there any logic there? Do you see any pattern? Simple answer is conservation you want to increase, but why only there? How do you decide these are important? There is something called Central Asian Flyway. From Siberia, you have the Himalayas here. Okay. So just ignore my drawing skills, but after you cross the Himalayan mountains, you will see the birds flying from Siberia traveling as far as South Africa, like till Cape of Good Hope. Along these lines, there are so many water bodies where the birds will stop. They will, take rest there. Some are, having their food there. Mating seasons will be there. Their reproduction cycles, everything will depend on this. Why do they migrate? That is how they react or adapt to the environment. In the cold season, since they can't survive there, they will move away from that. Once the season is normal, again they will go back. This region is called Central Asian Flyway. And if you observe a lot of sites, new sites that are added, they're usually around Uttar Pradesh region, which will actually be along these lines. The Central Asian Flyway. Wetlands are of importance not just for absorbing all that carbon. They're also important for the survival of these migratory birds. That's one more reason. Now, you have to use some anchors and facts like this to by heart the latest sites and observe those patterns. Remember the first wetlands and the latest ones. Rest all can be solved. Like up till recent times, that is how UPSC decide questions. If that pattern changes, we will see then. So, the current affairs from the year-end review from the topic of or the theme of climate and atmosphere system. If I take that as a topic from geography and environment interface, geography and environment interface, whatever current affairs we are seeing is basically addressing a core problem in that system. And we see this current affairs not as an isolated fact, but as a solution or a discussion in the context of that question. So, in present times, there is a discussion on how our economy should move from a business as usual approach to carbon neutrality or net zero. The other day we were discussing about this theme of decarbonization. Same problem statement. What is the year-end review saying here? There are some schemes which again we discussed. Carbon credit trading scheme. The other day we discussed about that in detail. That is treated as a initiative taken up by the government to solve the problem of carbon neutrality or transitioning towards net zero. Okay. So what is the intent here? Moving towards net zero using carbon credit mechanism or market as a tool for incentivizing the players. This is how I want you to read it. Then we've had this COP30 summit in Brazil. What I want you to know is the last 5 summits from Glasgow, COP26 till 30. what are the various takeaways in each of those summits. Nothing much, to be very honest. Here you will have something called the Bellum political package, which is talking about the climate finance. We have discussed this part in the initial classes of current affairs somewhere around December 13th or 15th. Go back to those videos and have a check. Next up, when we are talking about the design of questions, how can UPSC ask questions? I'll give you one interesting fact. This Belém, Brazil COP is the first such summit to be held in the Amazon basin. I can ask a question combining geography and the places where those meetings were held. Let's say, for example, on the banks of which river will you find a certain city? Most of the capital cities in the world are on the banks of various rivers. For example, London, Paris. Any idea? What about this place? Is there any river? Is it a possible theme? Yes or no? So observe. Why am I asking this question? UPSC has a way of recirculating old news or recirculating old themes of questions. Global rivers is a theme that was asked in 1990s. Even before most of you are born probably, that was how questions were designed. This city is on the banks of which river? Now I will take up environmental sites, like the sites where these meetings were held, and I will club it with geography based questions. It is in the river basin where, how did I get this inspiration? There was a Hindu article which said that this is the first meeting that is held in the Amazon basin. Okay. So they might ask a question like this also. I have to give credit to that writer who gave me that input. So you have to always question how this can be used for exam. That's how interlinking will be very easy for you and you will be able to get them right, no matter how difficult it is. Now if I ask a question like that, does it feel unfair or would you be smiling in the exam hall? Like the minute you see that question, you will smile helplessly because you know you can't blame the examiner. It is not wrong. He can ask because UPSC, like they can ask anything. You know that it is not difficult. You know you could have revised as if somebody told you. Today you will have to remember my name for that if it ever comes. But that's not how UPSC works. Like they will continue to surprise. I might be predicting river. They might ask a mountain. My point being, geography is a constant companion. They can combine it with any topic. They can pick up a random place and say it is international relations, places of conflict in news. I can combine that places of conflict and attach it with a river. So be mindful of every question that was asked in the previous years. Geography, environment, science and tech, economy, irrespective of it. Now is the time where they can combine any topic. So be mindful of preparing like this in an integrated fashion. We already studied this, the technological solutions for addressing the problem of climate. That is the reason I explained them in detail because year-end review is also discussing them. The hydrosphere and the blue economy is the second level, like second layer in which we have to prepare. This is the heading. A combination of geography and environment interface. If this is the theme, what problem is solved by the current affairs and discussion? So if I'm talking about wetland cities or some scheme like this, the problem statement it is dealing with is how can we ensure the urban growth without destroying our wetlands? If this is the problem, the scheme or the initiative taken up by the government should address that problem. Okay? So you begin by looking at these facts, mapping them to a specific objective they're trying to achieve, and then look at the mechanism of how they're trying to achieve it. Beyond this, you won't get any question. Indore and Udaipur, India's first cities recognized for wetland conservation. Wetland cities, the concept. Misty scheme, what is this? It's meant for mangroves. So I don't have to teach you what are the specifics because I will be reading out from the government report only. You can also do it. The difference comes in asking what is the implication of this. Okay, this site is declared so and so. What do I do with it? Why is this so important to me? What problem is it solving? The answer to that question will help you clear prelims. Then there are some terminologies given here. What is blue carbon? What is teal carbon? Any idea? Inland water bodies. What is blue carbon then? Coastal ecosystems. Clear? The associated terminologies. Then what is marine spatial planning? They can ask a definition based question. This is given in the year-end report, so you will have to know what it is. It is a planning strategy that considers economic activities and marine conservation efforts together. It is not environment versus economy, not this versus that. It is both. The strategy that facilitates it is called marine spatial planning. The definitions can sometimes lead to application based questions. Those applications, if you see a list, will be designed in such a way that you never heard them. But if you know the definition of MSP, not minimum support price, here in the context it is marine spatial planning, you will be able to answer that question. Which of the following activities can fall under the ambit of marine spatial planning? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1 only, 2 only, 3 only, 4 only. Possible? Or if they want to make it slightly comfortable, 1, 2, 1, 3, 1, 4, 5. Instead of asking pairs, they will give options. 2 possible ways. Fine. Next. Water related activities are over. Now we are talking about species. What important areas were discussed? The Gandhi Sagar Wildlife Sanctuary. Then you have the Madhav Tiger Reserve and the importance of this wild goat called Markhor. Because this is mentioned in the website, you have to know some details about it. What associated PYQ themes can you prepare here? Let me explain. I'm talking about Kashmir region goat. Immediately you should be able to think of some conservation projects. What is that? Angul. What is this Angul? Kashmir? Okay. Now, this is a herbivorous animal. You are talking about a goat. Both are eating the grass. Can I find them in the same ecosystem? If yes, are they competing? Is it a fair question? Where can I find this? Can I ask this question? If they are competing, what is the predator that is hunting them? Is that also endangered? If these are endangered, that should also be endangered because it is depending on them. Yes or no? What is that species? Okay. Animal behavior is one more question. There are 13 countries in the continuation. Like if you take a landscape approach, what is a landscape approach? Without considering political boundaries, you are witnessing the continuous countries acting like corridors for the movement of some animals. If you conserve all those areas together without political differences, you will essentially safeguard that animal. Do you think you can ask a snow leopard for a visa at the border and allow it to enter? Do you really think it will care? No, right? So animal behavior is an interesting theme for aspirants. Like not aspirants, definitely not aspirants, I'm sorry. It is not an interesting theme for aspirants, it is interesting theme for UPSC. And as a result, we are forced to find interest in it. Anyway, out of this animal behavior as a theme, there are two areas if you observe the pattern. One is insects, two is apex predators. The behavior of this large species, the flagship species, and insects is the area of interest for UPSC. For example, take the case of bees, wasp. All the insect based questions and their behavior were asked. Similarly, you will see elephant, tiger, and how they behave. Those themes were also asked. Third thing is apes. Okay, apes, monkeys, the evolution of those monkeys. You will have to know about them as well. By looking at this single word, you have to develop the ability to ask so many questions. Where is this? Be curious enough to associate whatever you have read elsewhere. That active learning makes prelims a fun game. So, it is a critical species which is conserved, and inaugural International Day of Markhor is declared by UN. So, a random goat, for us it is a random goat, you don't care about it. A random goat is declared as a important species not by Kashmir but by UN. You must be missing something. What are we missing? Why is it so important? What is the importance of this? Is there any economic importance for human beings, or is it a ecological importance? What is that? You should be understanding. Then one product that comes out of Kashmir is famous, the Pashmina shawl. What is the source of that Pashmina shawl? Goat. Is it Markhor? No? Then? No idea? PYQs? Pashmina shawl. Why am I asking these questions? Because this is there in news. The associated PYQ themes should be revised together. Everything that is important with respect to Kashmir from geography and environment standpoint should be revised. Now, coming to the geography part, it's going to be very confusing. Out of all the geographical elements, I can ask Trans-Himalayans, mountains, north to south to north, rivers, everything. But no, I will not be asking all of that. What are the important lakes in this region? How many of you are going to answer except that one or two lakes that are coming to your mind? I want to hear some other thing. What are the two names that are coming to your mind? Dal Lake? Except that, can you tell me anything? What is the bird that you can find there? Important migratory site for that bird. Take down that question. What are the important lakes? Again, in lakes, I can divide it into multiple categories. Salt lake, freshwater lake, artificial, that is man-made, or natural. If it is natural, is it created by erosion or deposition? All this can be asked as questions. Now, when you are talking about Pangong Tso, there is one important migratory species there. What is that? You have to know. Yeah, this important facts about Kashmir, that's all. Like everything that is related to Kashmir, you have revised. If you know answers for all of these questions, you are on par with even the rankers who will be competing with you. And what is more important is not every person will intuitively be able to link all this in a single sitting. Like it is not natural for most of the candidates to think of all these points while you're preparing for prelims. I'm using these sessions to bring that orientation so that any surprise thrown at you, you will be ready. Clear? I'll ask you one more way of complicating the same topic of Kashmir. How many of the lakes, which of the following lakes fall under the jurisdiction of a state that is probably going to be added as a 6th schedule place? Or that is a speculative news. I am not going to go there. Let's go by facts. Which of the following sites have lakes that are in 6th schedule areas? Which of the following wetlands you can find in 6th schedule areas? I will remove it and make it even more complicated. Which of the following lakes are you more likely to find in 5th schedule areas? All of this will represent the difficulty levels. So the problem is that you can't say I don't know 5th schedule. You know what is 5th schedule. You know the states that come under 5th schedule. You know what are 6th schedule areas. You know which lakes are there in that states. You know the wetland sites. What is the problem then? What is the source of that discomfort? Identify that. The source of that discomfort is not knowing whether exact geography matters or not. UPSC is cruel only to a certain extent. They are not asking for GPS coordinates of that lake. They will design options in such a way that if you know 5th and 6th schedules, if you know the famous say lakes and their sites, you will be able to solve the question. Have that much confidence, okay? Next. Okay, there is a term here, assisted natural regeneration. What is this? Again, having definitions and the clarity on those definitions matter. A strategic approach focusing on removing aggressive invasive alien species, Lantana camara for example, to allow native seed banks to naturally sprout and flourish. Basically, assisted natural regeneration. The word itself indicates what it is trying to do. Only if you remember the invasive alien species, ANR with IAS. If you are from the Telugu states, I don't think you will be struggling much to remember this now. Anyway, what is assisted here? Assisted comes from the fact that it is an initiative by the government itself. Why is it considered to be natural? Because we are utilizing seed banks and not bringing in any new technology here. The word regeneration indicates that you create an environment for growth of a plant in that region. It will happen. So you're removing them and adding them. So that is the assistance. Assistance comes from the fact that you are manually weeding out this invasive alien species. And you are naturally allowing the seed banks and the crops to regenerate. That is the meaning of N. So whenever you get a definition like this, pay close attention to the details of the question. Environment questions, you can solve them when you read the questions very carefully. Use them as clues. Get the concepts very clear. Solve the previous year questions. Environment is a high yielding area. Okay. Next. Allelopathy. This is a question that is asked in 2016 mains, and it is a definition based. In that year, this topic was not there in any traditional textbook. So obviously it will be difficult for everyone. There is no rule that whatever was asked in mains will not be asked in prelims and vice versa. They will ask. So it is important for you to know. What is this? It is a natural phenomenon where certain trees release biochemicals to inhibit the growth of competing plants, influencing forest composition and biodiversity. Don't confuse this with plant hormones. The naturally present plant hormones like auxins, gibberellins, cytokines, like all the hormones that you talk about, the growth hormones of plants that you read in your 10th class, basic biology. Don't club it with this. Those hormones and chemicals assist the growth of the plant or stunt the growth of the plant. It is not impacting some other plant. The difference in allelopathy and the basic growth hormones here is this difference. Clear? Notice the difference. That is one distractor that UPSC can use. Another way in which you can do your research is, eucalyptus is given. This is the most famous example. What important tree species that will exhibit this tendency of allelopathy? That is one question that you can expect. They won't go in this level of depth. That just, if you want to be on the safer side, if you are aiming for IO4 cutoff, crossing IO4 cutoff, these are the additional inputs that I want to give from my side. Human and urban system is the next area where current affairs that you see will try to address one problem of that component, the static theme. So if you have a discussion on urban heat island, discussion on circular economy, some programs like NCAP or the new regulatory updates like environment audit rules, they're all trying to address one main issue of how to manage the invisible pollution of Anthropocene. What do I mean by this invisible pollution? Whatever pressure that human beings are putting on the environment, we are not acknowledging that. In order to acknowledge it, it requires a combination of technological policy and coordination between communities. All of them will solve this climate problem. Any initiative taken therein will try to address these respective problems. That's how you have to see this. Firstly, definition based. Again, what is urban heat island? Look at the definition. They are roughly around anything between 2 to 4 degrees, in worst case even 7 degrees warmer, and this is because of lack of evapotranspiration and increased energy consumption. Basic stuff. Then there is circular economy, where you are trying to increase material efficiency. The discussion on this warranted us to go back to that concept, and extended producer responsibility is a set of rules or a strategy where government gives the burden of collecting the waste either on the producer or middleman, like indirectly. If you are reading the static syllabus of waste management rules 2016, plastic waste, e-waste, any waste, look at the burden of collecting that waste. Who is given that responsibility? That will be a source of question. Now, what national programs do we have? Here we have the NCAP. You know what is NCAP? What happened update? Like you can read it from here, nothing to explain. And the audit rules, recently there was a Supreme Court judgment in that case, like retrospectively you can't change the rules, something like that was there. Supreme Court said that sometimes when heavy investments were made, if we go strictly by it, it leads to irreversible loss for the companies, and it's not like the damage that is already done to the environment will be undone if I stop this activity. So henceforth we'll be careful, but let go of those old companies. This became a big controversy. In that context, the rules for environmental audit, they were also in discussion. So third party auditors to verify the industry compliance is now mainstream. We are believing that companies will come up with compliance report, trust based governance approach we are taking. So that is the main change in the rules. Okay, this is the summary of the facts, and then some biodiversity heritage sites are given. What is a biodiversity heritage site? These are the points. How are they declared and managed? I've given here. Some biodiversity site in newts, you just read it from this. And finally, some conservation reserves, not national parks, not wildlife sanctuaries. This conservation reserves as a concept is what I want to test in upcoming exams. Whenever you're writing these exams, I am expecting a question from this. So I've given basic details about this and also the important conservation reserves and focus in use. So please read them and be prepared for the next class. Okay. Don't ignore any of the homework given to you. Don't expect that somebody will give you that homework and I'll mug it up. Learning comes with some effort. Put that effort, it is worth it. Okay. Thank you.